what you think. Look,
Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 171st episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So Above the Law is a California-based rap group that's come up on the page a number of times before, like in my video for Dog Pound's Dog Food, or the one for Eazy-E's It's On Dr. Dre album. But while their third album, 1994's Uncle Sam's Curse, is probably my favorite release of theirs, and obviously the topic of today's discussion, they have some other pretty amazing projects I just haven't gotten my hands on at the time of filming this, like their 1990 debut, Livin' Like Hustlers, or their 1993 follow-up, Black Mafia Life. But Uncle Sam's Curse is definitely one of those album covers that pulled me in the first time I saw it, and really convinced me to give this LP a try, as it was the first one I ever heard from Above the Law, and I remember seeing it initially and just thinking it was the coolest thing ever, and it matches the equally memorable album title and theme to a T. Their allegiance to Eazy-E and Ruthless Records, while admirable, definitely put the crew in a bit of a bind, or at least in a kind of unsavory position, especially after Eazy passed, as it had kind of inserted them into that beef with Dr. Dre and left bad blood. Above the Law was made up of four founding members, which included KMG the Illustrator, Go Mac, DJ Total Chaos, and Cold 187 UM, who's arguably the most well-known member and face of the group. This was actually their final release under Ruthless Records, and they sure went out with a bang with Uncle Sam's Curse selling over 250,000 copies, proving that these guys really weren't any kind of underground or struggling act. One thing I feel that they improved upon from their sophomore effort to this album here is the ability to keep their more hardcore gangsta moments, but add in some contrast with socio-political commentary, separating them from a lot of their other G-Funk contemporaries. A good examples on the second track here, where Cold 187 gives us some food for thought with, "We were once the kings and queens, and now we've become the slaves. We were once the innovator, but now we've just become the imitator. We were once the leader, but now we've just become the follower, separating ourselves in packs that we call sets. I want to be free." I feel like this highlights a topic that many hip hop detractors don't really give enough thought, or flat out ignore completely. That being the idea that just because these people from the hood make music that mentions some of the terrible events they saw or experienced, it doesn't necessarily mean that they enjoyed them or wanted to be in those situations. And it definitely doesn't mean they're promoting or encouraging these dark topics. You'll even see the excuse sometimes that they should just leave the ghetto if they don't like it, and I don't know if I could think of a better example of how deliberately obtuse some people try to be. I mean, it's as if they have zero concept of how recent it was in US history, where black people were prevented from buying upper class and upper middle class homes solely because of the color of their skin. As much as these racist morons would like to have you believe that racism has zero effect on any living person today, it's common documented knowledge that many of the African Americans in the 50s and 60s being shoved into these lower economic areas was basically setting them up for failure. Some people don't have the same privilege that we have, and it's easy to pretend saying no to drugs or gangs is easy when you picture it happening in your life. But that's because you aren't facing the same daily hurdles that people from the ghetto are. I've used this hypothetical scenario before, but picture some kid in the inner city, and his dad is in jail, his mom's a heroin addict, and him and his siblings are going hungry virtually every night because nobody's there to provide. Then they see their cousin who's a drug dealer slash gang member, whatever, and they're flooded with cash and have no issue buying daily necessities. So when they eventually approach you and say you and your siblings can have proper food and clean new clothes, you are probably going to take up that offer. Especially when the people trying to convince you are older figures in your life that you respect and look up to, that you have no reason not to listen to or trust. And personally, I don't feel like that situation is really that far-fetched. I feel like Uncle Sam's Curse really embodies that kind of feeling of rage and wanting to escape this poverty. and feeling like you have potential inside you to do better things, you just don't have the resources necessarily. I want to share another killer verse off this thing that I feel like highlights a lot of those themes, but this time it's from KMG. He gives us a sequence of gems starting with, I love the way your brass bed slides across the floor. I can't forget the past, yo, the sweat starts to pour down my body. I pause as I stare out the window. I think of what I got then. I think of what I've been through. I've reminisced about the motherfucking old days, old lays, and how we was in motherfucking pain. Rolling with my partner to get a fucking zone, scared to hold some cocaine. I think it was 84. A year later, still living off that shit, counting a little paper as the world takes hits. And hits, sets over here, sets over there. You can tell they are set by the stars and rags in the air. Impressively, Cold 187 basically does all the production here by himself, which I think is actually the case with most of the Above the Law LPs, though there is some assistance from fellow members KMG and DJ Chaos. There's only two featured artists who have appearances on this thing, but both are absolute legends of the late 80s and early 90s West Coast hip-hop scenes, those being Tone Loc and Cocaine, the latter of which actually has 3 guest spots on this classic. For honorable mentions that didn't quite make my top 3, I'd have to name songs like Concrete Jungle, Rain Before Rainbow, Gangsta Madness, Return of the Real Shit, Everything Will Be Alright, and Set Free. My 3 overall favorites on this one would have to be Black Superman, California, and Who Ride. Thank you for watching my 171st video. For the next one, we're actually going to stay in California, but go in the pure opposite direction of G-Funk. So check out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments off this West Coast landmark are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Who would do such a thing? Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped the clay. Carrier planes flew overhead in pockets.